I guess the other piece is probably go ahead and address it, just because I've gotten so many solicited and mostly non-solicited comments on the 4th down, and probably need to put that thing to rest right now totally. And I'm going to take my time and explain this. You guys do what you need to do with it, or give your opinion on it, or research it yourself, or whatever. But I guess the first thing on that is to put it into context. There's no guarantee we would have scored, obviously, even if it was first down at the 50 with 4 minutes left. There's no guarantee that Dakota Cox wouldn't have gone back out there with a minute left in the game if maybe they got the ball back and would have gotten hurt. So I'm certainly not going to use that as an excuse. I mean, Boise beat us. Boise deserved to beat us. That's the first thing I'm going to say about that. The second thing is I think I have a pretty good credibility when it comes to instant replay. In 2003 and 2004, replay was brought to light, the idea of replay, by David Perry, who was in charge of the Big Ten Conference. At that time, I was at ESPN. I did mostly all Big Ten games. I know all the conversation about replay between Dave Perry, Jim Delaney, and the Big Ten. I know why the Big Ten had decided to go with it. I did the first game ever in college football with replay at Wisconsin in 2004. I know the intent of replay was to only correct egregious errors that happen in a game, period. I know through the first year or so when we decided to fully implement replay in college football, the statistics showed that it would be about one replay a game. That average time added to the game because of replay would be under 3 minutes. So the nation decided to go with replay. You look back at our game, there were 5 replays in that game, which added 14 minutes to the game. Dave Perry has since passed, but I know that was not the intention of replay, to replay 5 plays and add 14 minutes to the game. The next thing I'm going to say is this. If I was at the University of Notre Dame, and let's just take Notre Dame having played Arizona State Saturday in Tempe, a huge game. And if Notre Dame would have lost the game like we lost the game to Boise out here, if that was Notre Dame, Arizona State, exact same scenario. Notre Dame had the ball 4th-and-1, Notre Dame, Arizona State. If that game would have come down to that, this would be the #1 story in all of college football today. Across the country on SportsCenter, be #1 story. That's all anybody would be talking about. And I coach just like I'm at Notre Dame. And our kids, I approach it just like they're Notre Dame, Arizona State in a huge game. And that game was just as big to me as any game in the country. So I've got a responsibility to treat it the same way. And with that said, I have looked at every replay that the official in the booth had access to. 48 hours later, we have broke that thing down. Frame by frame by frame, have blown that thing up, frame by frame by frame. 48 hours after that call was made in that booth, in 4 minutes. If you ask me right now to say, was the tip of that ball across the plane of that 50-yard line, all that needed was the tip of that ball across the 50-yard line, I would say, honestly, being as unbiased as I can be, 75 to 80% of my decision is it was across that plane. Maybe 15 or 20 saying it was right at the plane. That's 48 hours after that game was played with all that technology we have. Obviously, it was not indisputable evidence to be able to overturn a call on the football field. And I challenge anybody in this country, because I've had a lot of unsolicited emails, texts, people that have done that, saying absolutely a mistake was made. And the only problem I have in all this, being dead honest, is the only people that say it was indisputable and there was concrete evidence that that call should be overturned was the Mountain West Conference. And to me, it's a bit of a slap in the face. Because to say that, was the tip of that ball across the line or not? 48 hours later, you're still looking at it saying, God dang, I mean, if I had to put $100,000 on it, truthfully, I'd say 75% of me says yes, maybe 25% no. But to say that is indisputable evidence in 4 minutes in a press box with the limited technology they have, and then to come back and say from the Mountain West Conference there's concrete evidence, indisputable evidence to overturn that call is dead wrong. And I challenge all of you to go take the tape, look at the tape, break it down. I'm just being dead honest with what I see. And when this season's over, I will go sit down with all the people that wrote that email, and I'll take it frame by frame as I did on a conference call yesterday. So that's where I stand. A major mistake was made in that game. All I ask is for accountability. So just like I'm at Notre Dame today and we'd have lost to Arizona State and we might have been in the top 4 in the country, just because we're little New Mexico and we're trying to win our 4th game of the season, to me it's just as serious, and I've got the same obligation. And to me, a mistake was made. And I'll look at whatever frame-by-frame evidence anybody has, but a mistake was made. Now, with that said, we may not have taken that ball and scored anyhow. Nothing against Boise. They deserve to win. That's just how I see it. So, any questions?
Were there more angles?
Absolutely not. The same angles you see on CBS Sports.
That was it?
Totally, that was it. He had an ability with the DVR to go frame by frame. We went frame by frame by frame and blew every frame up. And if you're asking me today, did that tip of that ball cross the 50? I'm saying yes. Now, there may be 10% of me that says, man, that camera wasn't right on that line, but maybe 10%. And if that can be determined as indisputable evidence, and when Dave Perry started replay back in 2004, when he said only egregious calls would be overturned, and you take that game out of the officials on the field hands, and ultimately the players' hands to overturn that call, I got a major problem with that. And I'm not, that's just how that's just, I think I got a responsibility to our players, our fans. We may not have the masses that Notre Dame had, but I promise you this would be the story of the country today. And all over this country, they'd be looking at that frame by frame, saying a mistake was made. That's all I got.
Coach, you said it was during a conference call. What did you say to the Mountain West?
I'm not going to go there. I said just basically what I said to you. I think it was a mistake. We agree to disagree. I challenge you to find anybody else that says that was indisputable evidence to overturn an egregious call that was made on that field. To be able to do that in 4 minutes in that press box, I see no way that call should have been overturned.
Were you guys like freezing it at the same time?
Freezing at the same time.
And then they're saying right here is...
Same thing, right down the line. So you go freeze it, you go look at it. I've had a lot of unsolicited and solicited people that I've sent it out to, and I'm not going to say who they are, to look at it and be honest, and I won't use your name to say, okay, you have this kind of credibility. Just do it for me. And it's been 100%. So obviously I'm biased. Obviously I have an agenda in it. None of it matters now. The game's over. I'm not whining. I'm not talking about anything other than there was not indisputable evidence to overturn that call. Period. Not saying we'd have won.
Have you ever had to deal with something like that?
Never seen it before. I've never seen that before on the spot of a football that was that close. That immediately on the sidelines, they waved the chains and said immediately it was a first down. There wasn't even a measurement. There was nothing. Let's go. I mean, it wasn't even close. On the real-time piece was not close. On the replays you saw on CBS Sports, you're going to have a hard time saying it was even close, truthfully. You see one elbow down, but it's the kid from Boise who had the white thing on his elbow. Then you go frame by frame. And then you blow it up frame by frame. And you are not going to come back and say, there's the conclusive evidence. Exactly right. Let's overturn that call. You're not going to find it.
Well, on the marker on the CBS broadcast, he was over that line. You know the line that they use?
Well, yeah, and that's not, that yellow line doesn't matter. It was exactly the first tip of the 50-yard line. You just put a plane up, just like that, a plane. And the tip of that ball touches that plane. It's a first down. Now, I'm saying it's as close as humanly possible. And if they'd have missed that call on the field, and they said it wasn't a first down, and they'd have said Boise's ball, I'd agree, don't overturn that either. But the intent of the rule is when the call is made, unless it's 100% indisputable, conclusive evidence, you don't take the call out of the official's hand. And only if it's an egregious mistake do you overturn that call. And I got 8 officials standing there looking at me on the sidelines like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? So I'm done. It's over. I'm done talking about it.
Coach, you get one more piece that we got to ask. I know what your answer is going to be, but we're getting a lot of feedback at the paper about the Mountain West conspiracy.
No, I'm not. Absolutely not. Just like I can't stand here and say we would have done anything with it. We might have fumbled the very next play, right? And Dakota Cox would have gone out there on defense anyhow. I'm not going anywhere other than, based on my experience, going back to 2003 and 2004, when I was in the middle of this thing, because I was at ESPN, and David Perry and ESPN and Jim Delaney in the Big Ten, all kind of discussion. And I was a coach that had just got out of the game. I was heavily involved in this. In fact, the games I did on replay, Jim Delaney was in the Big Ten office in Chicago, hooked up to everything that happened. That's how much was riding on getting this replay thing and how much the Big Ten went out on a limb. So I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I say I do have some credibility in this. And all I want out of this is accountability. Just like I'm at Notre Dame today, and maybe we're not going to a $13 million game today at the end of the season. I'm at New Mexico, I got the same responsibility, I got the same passion, and accountability is accountability. Whether I'm the little guy or I'm the big guy. That's it.
And that's what some of the folks are saying, that not Boise State.
That's why you got that pen in your hand. You can go take, and I'm not being, you can go take it frame by frame by frame and say, Bob Davie's absolutely wrong here. I challenge anybody to do that, to say there was conclusive evidence that that call should have been overturned. So all the rest of it's on you.
Well, the complainer conspiracy type thing is that they're in a big game.
Oh,
they're
that's.
Going to go to a bigger game than you get.
Oh, I have more faith. I've never bought into all that stuff. You know, I've never. I've never. You know, the whole JFK thing. Now I've let that go. There's a lot of things I've let go in the conspiracy. You know. Yeah, you know the whole thing. I'm still not leaving tickets for Elvis out here. I'm good. So you guys, all right, man. Let's move on, okay?
Coach, with that